Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into something pretty big happening in Thailand's financial world. It's all about the massive digital shift in banking and specifically the core banking software that makes it all tick. We've dug into a lot of material and it really shows a market that's, well, seriously on the move.
That's right. Yeah, core banking software, it's basically the hidden engine, isn't it? Running all those daily transactions, keeping track of everything. And what's really striking is the global picture. This market is huge, set to hit over $21 billion by 2030. We're talking like 9 or 10% growth every year.
And Thailand isn't just watching from the sidelines, it's right in the thick of it. We're seeing that same kind of growth here. It seems driven by, well, needing to ditch old systems and also getting ready for these new digital-only banks.
Absolutely. And PwC actually highlighted this. They found a lot of Thai banks are a bit behind on digitalization. And the main reason, these core systems are just old, inflexible. So upgrading isn't just nice to have anymore, it's really becoming critical.
Okay, critical. So focusing back on Thailand specifically, we're talking about a pretty sizable market just within the country.
Definitely. Pinning down exact numbers is tricky, but estimates put the Thai core banking software market easily in the hundreds of millions of US dollars. And the growth projected for the next couple of years, say 2023 to 2025, it's looking like high single digits, maybe even low double digits annually.
Wow.
Yeah, and that fits with the general trend of banks just spending more on IT overall. A big chunk of that new spending, it's going straight to these core modernizations.
You can see the money flowing. We've seen banks actually announce bigger IT budgets, specifically calling out core systems and digital platforms. What's really pushing them to spend that kind of cash now?
It's really two main things, I think. First, it's us, the customers. We want better digital banking, right? Smooth apps, easy access. We expect it now. And second, it's the competition. These fintech startups, they're nimble, they don't have the old baggage, and they're rolling out cool digital stuff really fast.
Right. So customer demand meets fintech pressure. That paints a clear picture. So our mission today is to really unpack this, look at the trends, the key companies involved, and crucially, how new stuff like the AWS Thailand cloud region is shaking things up.
Exactly. Let's start by maybe looking at the vendors themselves. Who are the main players selling these systems in Thailand? It's quite a mix.
Okay, yeah. Who are the key names we should know in this space?
Well, you've got your established global giants, the ones who've been around, and then these newer cloud-native companies, the neo-cores, as they're sometimes called. Traditionally, the big Thai banks, they've relied heavily on systems from these big international firms, or sometimes they even built their own stuff in-house years ago.
Yeah, that makes sense. You stick with what you know, especially with money involved. But who's making waves right now in Thailand? Any specific examples?
Okay, so one really interesting one is Sunline from China. They're cloud native. And SCB, a major Thai bank, picked them in 2024. That was a big deal. They're using Sunline to modernize how they handle deposits and loans. The main goals seem to be better scalability, handling more volume, and just being more efficient overall.
That's a pretty significant win for Sunline, especially, like you said, not being one of the usual Western names. What about the more familiar players?
Well, there's Infosys Finacle from India. They offer a sort of modern take on the traditional suite. They're actually powering Line BK, that K-Bank Line joint venture for their deposits and lending. Finacle has history in Thailand, too, like with Exim Bank way back. And you have Temenos, the Swiss company, big global player. Core banking, wealth management. Keatneck and Fatra Securities just put in a new Temenos wealth platform in 2023.
Okay, so a real mix there. Established names, newer entrants getting big deals. Any players from closer by within Southeast Asia?
Yeah, Silver Lake Axis, they're based in Malaysia. They're a key regional provider, kind of a legacy player in core systems. They supply systems across ASEAN, including Thailand's SME Development Bank. They've been around, but they're definitely facing more heat from the cloud guys now.
Interesting. So traditional, modern, traditional, regional legacy, and the newer cloud ones like Sunline. What about those really cutting-edge neo-core companies we hear about globally? Are they in Thailand yet?
It's still pretty early days for some of the big international neo-cores in Thailand itself. Take 10x Banking from the UK with their supercore. As far as we know, no announced Thai clients yet in 2025, but they work with huge banks elsewhere, like Westpac. Same story for Thought Machine, another UK neo-core with their Vault platform, no public Thai deployments we know of. But interestingly, they are used by digital banks nearby in Asia, like Mox in Hong Kong. And significantly, SEB's own venture arm invested in Thought Machine. So There's definitely interest there.
Ah, okay. So maybe not direct clients yet, but the groundwork is being laid, potentially through investment. Any other big neo-core names?
Mambu from Germany, they do a SaaS cloud core, very API focused. Making it easy for systems to talk to each other. Again, not really adopted by the big traditional Thai banks yet, but they're active across Southeast Asia. Very popular with fintech lenders and digital-only banks regionally. They're definitely one the new virtual banks will be looking at closely. And then, of course, you have long-standing giants like Oracle FSS with FlexCube used historically by some Thai banks and FuzzFizzer from the US. They have a smaller retail banking presence, but are boosting their cloud options.
It really sounds like a two-speed market almost. The established guys versus the new disruptors.
Exactly. You've got the incumbents, Temenos, Oracle, Finacle, SilverLake with deep roots, local features, but often older tech underneath. Then the neo-core cloud players 10x, Thought Machine, Mambu, offering these sleek API-first systems. They promise faster innovation, maybe lower costs. And that SCB deal with Sunline, it really showed Thai banks are opening up, looking beyond the usual suspects if the tech and price are right. And you can bet the established players noticed. They're adapting, pushing their own cloud and SaaS offerings much harder now.
Okay, crystal clear on the vendor landscape. Now, let's shift focus. How are the different banks in Thailand actually approaching this? It can't be uniform.
No, definitely not. You see action across the board, from the big incumbents to the newer players, but their strategies, they differ quite a bit.
Let's start with the big domestic banks. What are they up to?
Well, SCB, as we mentioned, is doing that huge overhaul with Sunline. That's a massive project, likely 4 years. They're replacing their old core, aiming for better efficiency, stability, and crucially, scalability to handle all those digital transactions. Their CEO talked about wanting to offer tailored solutions, seamless experiences, basically positioning themselves as a digital banking leader. And yet just some of the other big ones, Bangkok Bank, Krung Thai, K-Bank, are watching very closely and probably evaluating similar moves for their own, often heavily customized old systems.
So the giants are making major long-term plays. What about the next tier down, the mid-size or specialized banks?
They're definitely not sitting still either. Kiatnik and Fatra, for instance, went with Temenos specifically for wealth management tech. That shows targeted modernization. We're also seeing government banks like GSB and GHB putting out tenders for core upgrades. They need to improve service delivery too. And even the SME Development Bank put in a new SilverLake core specifically for their SME lending. So it's pretty widespread, this need to upgrade.
Right across the board then. What about foreign banks operating in Thailand? What's their approach?
Generally, they tend to lean on their parent company's systems, these big regional or global platforms. Think consistency. Krungsri, for example, being part of MUFG, uses some MUFG systems but also local solutions. Their upgrades often follow the parent company's timeline, but they absolutely have to comply with local rules, like data residency. That's key. Interestingly, Krungsri has been pretty active using AWS for cloud analytics even before the local region. And Standard Chartered, while smaller here, their global strategy uses cloud-native cores like Thought Machine for MOX in Hong Kong. That could influence their Thai tech direction eventually.
So it's a mix of global strategy and local compliance for them. Now, we talked about banks buying software packages. What about building it themselves? Is that still a thing?
Historically, yes. K-Bank, through KBTG, built a lot of their digital apps in-house. They were quite advanced. But building a whole core system from scratch, that's incredibly complex, expensive, and honestly less common now. The trend is definitely towards partnerships. Look at K-Bank again with Line BK. They use Finacle, a packaged core, and then built around it, customized it. It's about leveraging vendor expertise for that heavy lifting rather than reinventing the wheel.
Which brings us neatly to the digital-only banks and neobanks. They seem to be a huge catalyst for change here.
Oh, absolutely. The whole digital banking scene heating up, especially with the new virtual bank licenses coming. It's definitely pushing core choices forward in two main ways, really.
Okay, how is it affecting the established banks first?
Well, many incumbents have launched their own digital-only offshoots, and these often run on newer tech stacks separate from the main bank's old core. Line BK is the perfect example. K-Bank and Line's Venture runs on a cloud-ready Finacle core. That's why they could offer instant services in the Line app and grow so fast. Over 2.5 million users in the first year. That speed comes from the modern core's flexibility. TMRW by UOB is similarly digital-only, built on cloud-native tech, heavy on analytics. These act like test beds, right? Banks can try out new core tech on a smaller scale, learn from it, show it works, before maybe tackling the main legacy system.
Right, test the waters without betting the whole farm.
Smart.
Now, what about the completely new virtual banks we expect?
This is where things get really interesting. The Bank of Thailand announced the plan in early 2024, fully digital banks, no branches. The goal is more competition, reaching underserved people digitally. We're expecting maybe up to 3 licenses by 2025. And the big advantage they have, no legacy systems at all, zero baggage. So it's almost certain they'll go straight for cutting-edge, cloud-native core platforms from day one. We've seen this elsewhere in Asia, virtual banks using Thought Machine, Mambu. Thailand's will likely do the same. Big opportunity for those neo-core vendors. Plus, the BOT's licensing rules specifically mention tech capability and innovation. They want these banks to use modern tech and partner with fintechs. So their arrival is going to be a huge catalyst, setting a new tech benchmark and pushing everyone else to speed up their own upgrades.
It really sounds like these virtual banks could seriously shake things up.
Yeah.
Now, all this is happening within Thailand's regulatory framework. How are the rules actually shaping these decisions and innovation?
Oh, regulation is absolutely pivotal. It's not just a hurdle. It's actively steering the ship when it comes to core banking choices.
Let's break that down, starting with the virtual bank rules we were just talking about.
Right. The BOT framework is pretty clear. No branches, focus on financial inclusion, heavy use of tech. The 2024 rules demand robust tech infrastructure, strong digital service capabilities. That immediately pressures applicants and incumbents to invest in top-notch core systems. The BOT explicitly said they want these banks to boost Thailand's financial sector competitiveness. That signals support for modern platforms. So while they'll definitely scrutinize security and reliability, they seem open to cloud and outsourcing as long as the risks are managed properly.
So regulation is actually encouraging advanced tech adoption there. What about data residency and using the cloud? That's been a big global headache.
It was, historically. Thailand had pretty strict rules about keeping sensitive financial data onshore, made banks wary of public cloud for core stuff. But that's evolved. The BOT updated guidelines allowing cloud use, provided banks have strong risk controls and notify the regulator. The real game changer, though, is the upcoming local AWS region in Thailand. That directly solves the data residency problem. Banks can use AWS and keep the data in Thailand. Perfect. It fits right in with the government's cloud-first policy, too. The Prime Minister even welcomed the AWS investment, saying it strengthens national infrastructure, helps make Thailand a digital hub. So, practically, banks can now seriously think about running core workloads on public cloud without breaking data location rules. It's a massive shift, set to really accelerate cloud core adoption.
That AWS region does sound like a watershed moment. What other regulations are key here?
Security and operational resilience, always top of mind for the central bank. They have strict standards for IT systems, especially core banking. Uptime, disaster recovery, cybersecurity, the works. So when banks adopt new cores, particularly cloud or SaaS ones, they have to prove to the regulator that they're secure, reliable, resilient. This sometimes leads to that cautious, phased migration approach we talked about. But the modern core vendors know this. They're working on certifications, building local support. And regulators use audits, sandboxes to test new tech safely. It's about safety without blocking innovation.
A balancing act. Okay, what about open banking and fintech collaboration? How does regulation influence that?
Thailand hasn't mandated open banking quite like the UK or Europe, but the BOT and government strongly encourage bank-fintech collaboration. The Thai Bankers Association even created industry-led open API standards. The BOT is interested in data sharing frameworks, so indirectly this pushes banks toward core systems that integrate easily, that have good APIs. Being able to plug into payment wallets, QR payment networks, maybe personal finance apps, that's becoming essential. If Thailand ever does move to formal open banking, that would just add more fuel to the fire for core modernization. Need good connectivity. We already see things like the cross-border QR payments with Vietnam, PromptPay expanding these, all need API-ready cores.
And finally, data privacy. The PDPA, Thailand's equivalent of GDPR. How is that affecting core system choices?
Right, the PDPA, fully enforced since mid-2022. Similar rules to GDPR need consent, strong data protection. The problem is, many older legacy cores just weren't built for that kind of granular data control, consent tracking, anonymization. Newer cores often have more of that built in. Better audit trails, encryption, consent management tools. Yeah, PDPA compliance has definitely been another nudge for banks to upgrade or at least enhance data management in their existing systems. Initial cloud worries because of PDPA are also fading a bit now, with local regions coming online and better contracts in place.
So putting it all together, it really seems like regulation in Thailand has shifted from being a potential break to more of an accelerator for core banking innovation. Virtual banks, cloud endorsement, financial inclusion focus. It's all pointing that way.
Exactly. And perhaps the most concrete example of that supportive environment is this AWS Thailand cloud region we keep mentioning. its impact could be huge.
Okay, let's really dig into that. AWS Asia Pacific, Bangkok region, launching soon, $5 billion investment over 15 years. That's serious commitment. What does it really mean for the banks?
It means a lot. First off, it's AWS's first proper region here, actual data centers in Thailand, offering their full suite of services locally. And the kill point, as we said, is data residency. Banks can use AWS, keep data and workloads in-country, satisfying those BOT requirements, and also lowering latency, making things faster.
And Thai banks are already using AWS quite a bit, even without the local region, right?
Oh, yeah. Many are already using AWS, maybe via Singapore, or using AWS Outposts, which puts AWS hardware in their own data centers. SCB, for example, has worked with AWS on analytics. They were pretty early cloud adopters. Crohn's calls AWS their strategic cloud provider. They use it heavily for data analytics, machine learning, optimizing operations. Their IT head said the local region will significantly expand the possibilities, big endorsement. And KBank's tech arm, KBDG, their CTO called building on AWS game-changing for innovation. They expect the local region to improve latency, data sync, security even further, better services for customers.
So there's already a strong base of use. How does the local region specifically speed up modernizing the core banking systems themselves?
It basically removes that key blocker we keep hitting, data location. Banks can now more confidently host core applications or systems right next to the core, like digital front ends or payment hubs, on AWS without regulators raising eyebrows about data sovereignty. This will almost certainly boost cloud migration for core functions that were stuck on-premise before. It enables that gradual shift too. Move databases, move specific microservices for loans or payments onto AWS. Use the cloud scale and flexibility. Plus, AWS has tools to help banks re-architect old apps for the cloud, break them into microservices. Even if the main core stays in-house initially, they can use AWS for backup, disaster recovery, handling peak loads. Hybrid cloud becomes much easier.
So it unlocks flexibility and scalability. What about the impact on digital banking innovation generally?
That's where we'll likely see the most immediate impact. Digital-only banks, fintechs, they benefit hugely. They can run fully on the cloud, get fast, reliable performance for Thai users, and meet the rules. Lower latency is huge for real-time payments, fraud detection, snappy mobile apps. Even the Stock Exchange of Thailand uses AWS now and expects the local region to let them offer faster data feeds. Banks will see similar gains in payments, mobile AI services like chatbots or personalized advice. And don't forget, AWS's investment includes training, building a partner ecosystem, developing local talent. That lowers the risk and cost for banks making the switch to cloud cores.
Sounds like a major boost for AWS in the market. How does this shift the competition between the big cloud providers there?
Well, AWS definitely gets a big head start with the full local region. Azure and Google Cloud are active. They have partnerships, some local edge infrastructure, but not a full region yet like AWS will have. So yeah, AWS likely deepens its ties with many Thai banks because of this. That said, big banks often go multi-cloud anyway. For resilience, avoid vendor lock-in. So you might see a bank use AWS for core, maybe Azure for other stuff, or ensure they could move systems if needed. But the main point is, this huge AWS investment really validates the whole cloud-first approach in Thai banking. It makes cloud feel safe, accepted, even for critical infrastructure. It's moved beyond just non-core applications.
Right. So the AWS region really feels like a catalyst, pushing Thailand towards cloud-based core modernization, letting banks innovate like global leaders while staying compliant locally.
Exactly. And all this activity, the tech advances, the regulatory support, banks upgrading it's creating a really intense competitive environment.
Okay, let's explore that. What are the main competitive dynamics playing out right now in Thailand's core banking scene?
Well, it's happening on two levels, really. First, between the banks themselves, this kind of race to modernize, and second, between the software vendors fighting for their business.
Let's look at the banks first. What does this race to modernize actually look like?
You're seeing real pressure to upgrade, and fast. The banks that move first, like SCB with their big project, they could get a real edge, be more agile, launch new products quicker. So you'll likely see others follow quickly, the fast followers. Nobody wants to be seen as the bank with the old, slow systems. We should expect more announcements soon about core replacements or big cloud deals from the other major players. They're also looking over their shoulders at banks in Singapore and Malaysia, feeling the need to keep up technologically.
And on the vendor side, it sounds like a real battleground.
Oh, absolutely. Vendors are fighting hard for these Thai deals. They know there's a big wave of upgrades coming. Your traditional players, Temenos, Oracle, they're playing up their local experience, their existing relationships. Meanwhile, the newer guys are showing off success stories elsewhere, talking up cost savings and flexibility. That Sunline win at SCB really shook things up, showed that performance, flexibility, and cost can win deals, even for less familiar names. You can bet that woke up the Western vendors, made them look at their pricing, push their cloud options harder. We're also seeing regional tech firms, maybe Chinese firms like Huawei's fintech arm, Silver Lake. They're emerging as competitors, potentially with lower costs. And those Western neocores, 10X, Thought Machine, Mambu, they might get their foot in the door via the virtual banks first, or maybe smaller firms. We could even see more partnerships, global vendors teaming up with local IT companies for better local support and compliance confidence. Every single deal is high stakes because banks tend to stick with the core vendor for a long, long time.
It definitely sounds like banks have a lot to weigh up. How are they handling that classic trade-off between wanting to innovate quickly versus the risk of messing up such a critical system replacement?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Go cutting edge early, get the benefits, but face the execution risk. Or wait. Some more conservative banks might wait and see how the early movers fare before they jump in. But waiting has costs too. Higher IT running costs on old systems, slower feature rollouts. You risk losing younger, digital-savvy customers to faster rivals. So the most likely path is probably staggered. A few leaders push ahead by 2025, more follow in 2026, 2027. The slowest ones might get forced to act if they start really losing market share, especially once those virtual banks launch and show what modern cores can do. But make no mistake, pretty much all banks are modernizing in some way. The difference is just the speed and scope.
And ultimately, all this tech change is supposed to benefit the customer, right?
Right.
How is that focus on customer experience playing out in the competition?
Hugely. Customer experience is becoming the key battleground. The core upgrade isn't just about back office stuff. It's about enabling that superior front-end experience, launching better products faster. Banks are branding themselves around digital capabilities now. SCB talks about being a digital bank with human touch. The competition is heating up on who has the smoothest app, who approves loans fastest, who gives the best personalized advice. All that depends heavily on the core system underneath. As more banks get onto modern cores, expect that feature war to really accelerate. 2047 instant loans, fully digital onboarding, slick multi-currency accounts. That'll become more common. Banks with flexible modern cores can just iterate faster, respond to customer needs quicker. We could see a real split develop in the next few years between the banks that can offer truly innovative services and those stuck on older platforms.
With all this pressure and change, could we see bigger structural shifts, like more bank consolidation or partnerships?
It's definitely possible. If some smaller banks find the cost or risk of transformation too high on their own, they might look to partner up or even merge. We've seen this elsewhere, smaller banks sharing a core platform, for example. In Thailand, where the top 5 have such a big market share already, maybe smaller players will need to join forces. Or maybe bigger banks will acquire smaller ones, partly to get customers onto their new modern core. We saw with the TMB Thanachart merger into TTB. They had to merge core systems. That's a huge driver. So yeah, competitive pressure could indirectly spur more consolidation.
Okay, so looking ahead maybe 2-3 years, what's the overall outlook for Thailand's core banking software scene?
Well, by 2025, I think the landscape will look quite different, noticeably transformed. We'll likely see at least one, maybe two, major banks fully live on new cores, or very close to it. The first virtual banks will be gearing up, running entirely on cloud cores. We might even see some foreign digital banks entering via partnerships. The market itself spending on licenses, cloud, integration will keep growing strongly. Double-digit growth seems very likely. Vendor competition should keep prices competitive and push features forward, which is good for banks. And banks competing for customers will keep demanding more from their core systems, driving more innovation. Regulators probably maintain that pro-innovation but careful oversight stance. So the overall trend is undeniable. More modern, more agile, more cloud-enabled core banking across Thailand.
So wrapping this up, it's clear Thailand's banking sector is really in a pivotal phase of core modernization. It's being driven by this potent mix of digital transformation demands, supportive regulation, and key tech advances like that AWS cloud region.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the competition is fierce, both among the banks racing to upgrade and the vendors vying for those crucial contracts.
And hopefully the real winners in all this will be the customers getting better digital experiences, more innovative products, thanks to these foundational upgrades.
That's the ultimate goal, yes.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. As Thai banks really get to grips with these new core technologies, what kind of unexpected innovations or services might pop up soon? Things that could genuinely change how we all deal with our money day to day. Something to watch. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive today.